everyone is stuck at home right now, this is a great time to share some book recommendations with you guys. And what better place to start than with my personal top 5 all-time favorite book series. Now, I'm constantly reading new books. My favorites are always changing, but these 5 books are always going to hold a special place in my heart. I'm not sure if favorite's really the right word. It might be more nostalgic. These are just the top 5 book series that are most special to me. So just a fair warning, I love young adult fantasy fiction. It's definitely not the only genre I read. There are so many genres out there. I love exploring new ones, especially ones I haven't read a lot of. But you're going to notice a theme with the books I have to share today. So in no particular order, these are what I consider to be my top 5 all-time favorite book series. So the first book I want to introduce to you guys is Maximum Ride by James Patterson. I actually got this Sorry, it's really windy here. It was actually snowing earlier in May, which is not something I'm a fan of. I think that was just the wind shifting the house. Anyway, I actually got this book for the first time as a birthday present from my gram for, I think it was my 14th birthday. And I remember opening it and looking at the cover like, this does not look like something I'm going to enjoy. But that's why we don't judge books by their cover, because as soon as I started reading this, I was hooked instantly. Basically, the book revolves around these 5 kids, Maximum Ride being the main character, who have escaped from a laboratory where they've been experimented on since birth, and these experiments have left them with bird wings and the ability to fly. It's a 9-book series, the first one being The Angel Experiment. It's a super intense story as these kids are constantly on the run and on the brink of recapture. But the characters are funny, they're lovable, they're relatable, especially for teenagers, and they actually went on to make a manga adaptation. So if that's more your style, I also really love that version of the series. The art is beautiful, it still tells the same story in a really great way. It's action-packed, great for all ages, boys and girls. I highly recommend this book to everyone I meet. The next book I have on my list is a classic. I'm sure you'll find this book on a lot of people's lists, and that is Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Now, if you haven't heard of Harry Potter before, you probably live under a rock. This book series is so near and dear to me. I feel like I really grew up with the characters as I read this series throughout my childhood. The premise is that there's a young boy, Harry Potter, and he lives with his aunt and uncle who are plain, abusive, they're mean, and he struggles through life until one day he finds out that he's actually a wizard, and he'll be going off to wizarding school to learn magic and spells and uncover this whole world that he never even knew existed. One of my favorite aspects of this book is that the world J.K. Rowling has created is so immersible. You really feel like you're going to school with these characters and joining them on their adventures, and you get really caught up in the love and the drama and the fights and all of the emotions going on throughout this entire series. There are 7 books total, but it's completely blown up in the world of media. It has 8 movie adaptations, there are video games, you can go see sets where it was filmed. I've actually visited a couple of them in London. I had the opportunity to go to Platform 9 3/4. I also visited Oxford University where they filmed some of the broom flying lesson scenes. I had the time of my life. It was a great experience seeing the places that came to life in these movies in real life. There's also now an amusement park in Orlando, Florida called the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and I've yet to visit there, but it's close to the top of my to travel to list. I would show you guys my wand and my scarf that I have, but they're sadly back in our apartment in Brooklyn. I did take the test on Pottermore, which is the official Harry Potter website, although now it goes by wizardingworld.com. And I'm a Gryffindor, if anyone's curious. I'll link the quiz below if anyone else wants to take it and find out what house they are. But this book just has so many great themes and lessons. It's really easy to draw parallels to the real world and how these characters deal with power and corruption and standing up for yourself and standing up for what's right despite what people may tell you, despite what the media says, despite what people in positions of power say, standing up for your beliefs, standing up for what you know is right, even when no one's on your side. You just want to be in the story with Harry and his friends, fighting the fight and learning magic along the way. Who wouldn't love that? The next series I have has also become a classic over the years, though not quite as much as Harry Potter. It really started gaining popularity in 2012 when the movie released, and that series would be The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I read this series before the movie was set to come out. I actually have really fond memories of reading it with my mom. She doesn't read a lot, but we would spend a lot of time in the car when I was growing up. So to pass the long car rides, I started reading her some of my favorite books, which included The Hunger Games. I remember when she found out that I was reading this, she was concerned. She was very concerned. She was a bit of a strict parent growing up, very protective, and she was under the impression that it was just a gory, mindless book about kids killing each other, which a lot of parents were concerned about when this was growing in popularity. But having read the book, it was actually assigned as a reading assignment for me in the 9th grade. I knew this wasn't true. I knew it had a lot more substance, and I told her this, and to prove it, I decided to read it to her. So we spent a lot of time reading it in the cars. I actually read all 3 books to her, and it's now one of her favorite series as well. The movie actually came out only 2 days after my 16th birthday, so as a bit of a birthday present, my mom and I went to see the midnight premiere together. It was a great time. It's one of my favorite memories now. I actually think the themes and lessons in The Hunger Games are very comparable to those in Harry Potter. You have the main heroine, Katniss Everdeen, and she lives in a post-apocalyptic world that has been sectioned into 12 districts. And every year, the capital of these sections forces each of the 12 districts to sacrifice one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 to 18 to fight to the death in the Hunger Games. Yes, it's a dark concept, but I mean, look at the real world. We're not living in a fairy tale. These books teach younger generations to stand up not only for themselves, but for their beliefs, for what's right, and for those who aren't able to defend themselves. It's a trilogy, so it reads fast, and if you haven't already read this series or Harry Potter, I really recommend you do so. Whether you're a young adult, male or female, even if this fantasy fiction isn't your jam, there's something in these books for everyone. The lessons are ones we should be constantly talking about as a community. These 2 books I really recommend to people. So I know I said I was showing these books in no particular order, but I would be lying if I said these last 2 on my list weren't the top of every book I've ever read. They hold such a special place in my heart. They're some of the earliest books I can remember really loving and really becoming immersed in and feeling like I was part of these worlds as I was reading them. And they discuss topics that we should be discussing in a way that's easy to comprehend. It makes them manageable and understandable, especially for young adults. You know, these are scary things to discuss. These are not easy topics, but these books really do an amazing job of putting them into perspective and wording them in a way that people can understand and grasp, and that's where the conversation starts, and that's so important. The first one being The Lightning Thief by Riordan. This book focuses on young Percy Jackson, who one day finds out he is actually the son of the Greek god Poseidon. As you can imagine, this turns his whole life upside down. He starts discovering powers he never knew he had, and he's sent off to a summer camp, Camp Half-Blood, which is made for kids like him who have one mortal parent and one godly parent. This book series is definitely aimed at a younger audience. I read it for the first time in an advanced reading group in the 5th grade, but that doesn't mean that adults and young adults alike can't also appreciate these stories. This book was also turned into a movie adaptation back in 2010, although I kind of feel like I shouldn't even mention it because the book and the movie were almost 2 completely different stories. I don't know what Hollywood producer decided that the plot needed tweaking, but it was definitely a flop with fans of the book. I have heard that people who didn't read the book really enjoyed the movie, so if you want to check it out, do so. That's my fair warning. I wasn't a big fan of the movie because I grew up reading the series and I knew what really happened and who the characters were, and they just didn't portray that as well as they could have, which is unfortunate. However, it was also turned into an off-Broadway musical, which I dragged Ian to go see with me in New York City. And while we were easily the oldest fans in the audience amidst parents taking their young children to see this fun musical. I had a great time. It was still really amazing seeing these passionate people and actors bringing this story to life in a way that Hollywood couldn't. There are 5 books total in this series, but Riordan actually went on to expand the series, and he created a few tie-off series that include some of the same characters, but ultimately focus on the Roman gods, the Egyptian gods. These books aren't just fun, they're also educational. I feel like at this point in my life, I have a weirdly extensive knowledge of Greek mythology, and that passion and my want to learn about that topic all stems from this book. The last book on my list is Gone by Michael Grant. I discovered it back in high school, and not only myself, but my entire group of friends immediately fell in love with it. We loved the characters, we loved the premise. It's all we talked about for a while. If you scroll back to some of the earlier videos on my channel, almost all of them are recordings of different scenes and parts of these books that I filmed with my friends back in high school. There's no movie adaptation, there are no television series, so we decided to take matters into our own hands and said, if no one else is gonna film it, we will. And we did. They're amateur. They're definitely amateur videos. Although I did actually get called out by Michael Grant on Twitter a few years back. We were all so excited. We had it in our heads that we were gonna be the actors if this ever came to be a movie. So the premise of this book is that one day in a small town in California, everyone over the age of 15 disappears. No one knows why or how. It focuses on Sam and his group of friends as they try and figure out what's going on and what strange phenomenon they're dealing with. A barrier has shown up surrounding their entire town, and kids begin mutating and developing powers. The themes of this book really deal with corruption and the amount of power someone can have. It reminds me a lot of Lord of the Flies. There are 6 books in the original series, but Michael Grant actually just released a follow-up that takes place a few years after the last book, and there are 3 extra books in that series. If you don't believe me when I tell you how much I love both Gone and The Lightning Thief, these are my original copies of both. They're battered, they're torn. This one is duct taped together. They're written in, I'm pretty sure I still have my favorite passages bookmarked from high school. I have read these books so many times, and I really feel that these books, as well as Maximum Ride and Harry Potter and The Hunger Games, played a large hand in shaping who I am as a person today. So those are the 5 series I wanted to share with you guys today. As I said, I will be doing future videos of other books I'm reading. These just happen to be the top 5 that are nearest and dearest to my heart. I grew up with these books, I grew up with the characters. I would recommend them to anybody. Don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss any of my future content. I will also leave a link up in this corner. Check out my last video if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more book reviews, or if these are some of your favorite books as well. And in the comments, tell me what you guys are reading right now. Do you have any suggestions for me? What kind of books would you like to see me review? I love hearing from you guys. I really want to discuss these things with you. I am passionate about books and reading, so if you feel the same, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Until then, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye! I can name all 12 of the gods on Olympus. That's my party trick.